Hi, I'm Dr. Dave Janda. Welcome back to our ongoing health and wellness series based at OperationFreedomHealth.com with my good friend and the top naturopathic physician, not just in our country but the world, Dr. Peter Glidden. We have been doing this series for over 2 years. And one of the foundations of why we've done this series and our goal is to give you a foundation of data and science and facts and truth, all of which the bought off lamestream fake media, big government, big medicine, read that as the AMA, big insurance, big pharma, do not want you to possess. Here's what they want you to possess: fear. Fear, fear, fear. Why? Because out of fear, you become paralyzed. You become demoralized. You become ill. And then you play into their system. And this is why they despise Dr. Peter Glidden. They despise Dr. Dave Janda. They despise what we do on OperationFreedomHealth.com. So let's just take them on directly with today's broadcast. This is entitled Too Much Fear and No Energy, because let's face it, when they got you in the fear mode, they sap your adrenal glands. They sap your energy. They sap your cognitive abilities. This is what they focus on when they run a PSYOPs program. And that's what this has been the past 18 months. We can't be mentioning names like this or this, but because the censors just crawl out of their little holes and like cockroaches and shut everything down. But the bottom line is, today we're going to talk about, there's too much fear and you might have no energy, but not for long, based on the information we're going to provide you today. It's my honor to bring back my good friend, and as I said, top naturopathic physician, not just in our country but the world, Dr. Peter Glidden. In addition to his outstanding clinical abilities, Peter is an outstanding author. I encourage you to get his books, available on Amazon. Everybody is sick, and I know why. And Attempt to Cure with Holistic Medicine. They should be your foundation for your medical library at home. Pete, welcome back to the Operation Freedom platform.
Always a pleasure, Dave. And you know, it's interesting, don't you think, that when you're in boot camp or when you're in medical school, when you're a prisoner in some detention cells someplace in Afghanistan, the intention is to make you afraid all of the time, to make you sleep deprived all of the time, to make you afraid and sleep deprived, because when you're like that, it's pretty easy to manipulate how you think. Mm-hmm. And that, I think, has been a subtext to what's been going on here for the last 2 years.
And frankly, I did a presentation on this platform actually the other day, Pete. This really, a big chunk of what we're experiencing today can be attributed to the 100 years that you've spoken about, the 108 years that the medical industry became co-opted by the Rockefellers, if you will, in the past and in the present. But also one of the ramifications, this is what we're seeing today with government edicts, protocols, mandates, sanctions if you don't go on, is a result of Obamacare.
100%.
That was focused on the most unethical and inhumane means of cutting healthcare costs, the rationing denying of care by government bureaucrats that have no functional medical knowledge, that are thousands of miles away from where the doctor-patient is having a meeting, where they're trying to control what's done. This is what and this in turn, rightfully so, does induce fear in the doc and in the patient and destroys their relationship.
No, 100%, and that's why they do it. And, you know, it begs the question, and it's the secret that's hiding in plain sight. Well, who made the FDA king?
Right.
There's all these different types of medicine. There's Ayurvedic medicine, the oldest medicine on the planet. Dare I say it out loud, traditional Chinese medicine, acupuncture, homeopathy, naturopathy, botanical medicine. For goodness sakes, chiropractic medicine. There are all these different types of medicine in addition to pharmaceutical medicine, right? Mm-hmm. But the only type of medicine that's represented by the FDA and policed by the FTC is MD directed medicine. It's the only medicine that's okay to use. It's the only thought that's allowed to propagate. And it's criminal, quite frankly. Mm-hmm. But it begs the question, why? And why do we put up with it? And who made the FDA king? Well, they're not elected, they're appointed. Mm-hmm. And they've got power over everything. And from a purely objective scientific point of view, it's just not right. It's a monopolization of the medical marketplace. But honest to God, it's been in place for so long, before most people were born, before anybody was born, quite frankly, that nobody even recognized it as a monopoly, because it's just what they grew up with. It's just what they're used to. And you're right, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And I really think that these people actually believe that they can get away with anything, because, well, so far, so good.
Yeah, right? So far they have. Right. And in the process, they wear people down. And they wear people down psychologically, mentally, and which ultimately leads to their physical breakdown. And one of the common threads I get from people that watch our videos is say, this is just wearing me down. And to the point where I have no energy. I'm just exhausted all the time. So let's address this issue, Pete, because with recharging people's batteries, we recharge them mentally in addition to recharging them physically. So let's talk about recharging someone's energy.
So, right from the proper perspective, everything makes sense. And the holistic method argues that the human body has a built-in self-regulating ability. Mm-hmm. The human body knows how to fix itself. It wants to fix itself. It's trying to fix itself all of the time. Therefore, it becomes the physician's obligation to develop and deliver therapeutics that support the body's ability to maintain itself and then to fix itself if something goes wrong. Mm-hmm. So, from this point of view, let's be real, let's be pragmatic. Life is a great big bowl of stress. There's all kinds of stress. There's aging, the weather, the viruses, bacteria, emotional stress, financial stress, political stress. We had tons of political stress last year with the whole Trump debacle, right? The whole election debacle.
And it's still going.
Right. Stress all of the time. And there's only two possibilities when stress hits the system. Well, there's positive stress, like exercise. Yep. Right? Mm-hmm. Exercise, you'll get stronger after the fact if you do it correctly. But in this context, we're speaking about distress, negative stress. Mm-hmm. So when a negative stress hits the body, only two possible outcomes. Either the body is strong and the stress hits the system and bounces off like a force field around the body, just bounces off and doesn't have any impact. Mm-hmm. Or the system is weak. The stress is too strong for the system. The stress impacts the system, destabilizes the system, and the system compensates with generating a symptom. All right? Mm-hmm. Now, into this situation, conventional medical doctors have been trained to develop and deliver medicines which are oppositionally defiant. Mm-hmm. So you get an antibiotic, an antidepressant, an anti-inflammatory, right? A proton pump inhibitor, a serotonin reuptake inhibitor. You get a medicine which is oppositionally defiant and suppressive to the symptom.
Correct.
But then the drug wears off, what happens?
Whoop, up we go again.
Back,
right.
And if you deliver the drug long enough, you weaken the body more. The body, and remember, this is an interesting point of view that isn't taught to anybody. The symptom that a sick person develops is a compensating action that the human body is generating. It's uncomfortable, it's painful, it's a problem, but it's a compensation.
Right.
When you eliminate the compensation with a drug, the system must fall further off balance and then develop another symptom. And this is a perfect business model for big pharma, because more drugs, more symptoms, weaker body, more symptoms, more drugs, weaker, right? So the last 10 years of somebody's life, it's a revolving door to the doctor's office, for goodness sake. Mm-hmm. People are on 8 different prescription medications, and I'm healthy. Well, no, you're not.
Right.
So holistic doctors are trained to develop therapies that push the system back into a state of balance.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when this happens, what happens to the symptoms? It
no
disappears.
longer don't have to compensate. Right.
So the stress that we've been under for the last 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, if you're in cold weather, like sub-zero weather, that's going to have a really negative effect on your skin and your lungs specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Different types of stress will affect different parts of the body. The stress that we've been under for the last 2 years has a dramatic effect on your endocrine system and your adrenal glands. Mm-hmm. That's what become affected. Mm-hmm. That's what become effective in this conversation. So, and this is like the New England fog. It creeps up on little cats' feet. You don't even know that it's there until all of a sudden you're surrounded by it, and it seems like it happens like that. But it doesn't. It was a slow burn. But it's hard to feel.
Right.
It's hard to conceptualize. It's hard to get a grasp on that because it's slow. I mean, you don't feel your hair growing. Your hair grows, you don't feel it. Well, that's what this type of stress will do. It's insidious by its very nature. It whittles away at you a little bit at a time, and then you wake up one day and, you can't get out of bed. Motivation's gone. You're ticked off at everybody for everything, and it's not good. And you don't know why, because it's been a slow burn, and your medical doctor has no idea. They'll put you on an antidepressant, put you on an anti-anxiety medicine. It's nuts.
Right.
Or, 5-hour energy to like fill your body with caffeine so that you're nuts. It's good business model for Starbucks, for goodness sakes, right?
Right.
So what do? Well, number one, in order to deal with a problem, the first thing you have to recognize that it's a problem.
Right.
And I think our listeners understand this is a flipping problem. Mm-hmm. Because we've got our fingers on this pulse of this problem more than anybody else does. And we attempt to bring people the truth all of the time. And for goodness sakes, it's a mountain of stress, man. A mountain of stress. So what do? Well, in this case, because of this particular stress, after we provide the foundation, which everybody needs all of the time. There's no getting away from that, for goodness sakes.
And the foundation is the 90 essential nutrients and minerals, correct?
100%.
And we've talked about that a number of times before. Again, available, OperationFreedomHealth.com, the foundation pack, right? You want to give a little blurb on that?
So the foundation pack gives the human body all of the raw materials that it needs to function the way that nature and God intended it to do. Oh, I said God out loud. Imagine that.
Yeah, right. Whoa.
Nature and God.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. Gives the body the stuff it needs to fix itself. I mean, you put oil into your car, you put transmission fluid in the car, you put power steering fluid in the car, you put water in the radiator, because it needs it. Well, there's 90 things that your body needs, but you can't get them from food. You can get some of them, but not all of them. So you got to give the body the stuff it needs to maintain its integrity. Number one. And number two, depending on the stress that you're around, you have to give the body the resources to handle that stress. You don't go outside in sub-zero weather in your flipping bathing suit. You bundle up.
Right.
Because you're guarding against that particular stress. You go scuba diving in 40-degree water, you put a wetsuit on, for goodness sakes, to protect yourself against the cold. So for this particular stress on top of the 90, we use extra plant minerals, mm-hmm. because minerals get burned through really easily when you're under this type of stress. Everybody's minerally deficient anyway, so it's a good idea to increase that. And adrenal support and hypothalamus support. Now, the hypothalamus support is really interesting because there's a relationship between the endocrine glands in the body, between the hypothalamus, the pituitary, the thyroid gland, and the adrenal glands. There's a communication there. Mm-hmm. And it's like a concert. You don't just pay attention to the drums. You don't just pay attention to the strings. You got to give everybody in the ensemble needs a little help here, and so that's why we do the adrenal support and we do the hypothalamus support. And that's like peanut butter and jelly, man. That's like, coffee and donuts, right? Mm-hmm. It's just a really great combination. And 1 bottle of each a month. And the recommendation would be 2 milliliters of each. You take 2 milliliters of the adrenal support. You mix it with 2 milliliters of the hypothalamus support. You throw it down like a shot of tequila twice a day. Add an extra ounce of the plant minerals into your program. You can do that whenever you want. And then you can go outside and you can laugh at the stress. You can laugh at the branch covidians. You can laugh at all of this nonsense because you're going to be able to handle it.
That's right. And Pete, you mentioned this. When I first started having issues, I had significant arthritic symptoms, significant hypertension issues. For a long period of time, you told me, Dave, get on the foundation pack, add to it the hypothalamus support, the adrenal support with the foundation pack or the minerals, add a little bit more. And as you know, Pete, hard head, surgeon, Pete, yeah. And I would take my big pharmaceutical generated antihypertensives and as I pointed out before, prescription grade anti-inflammatories, which were then supplemented by non-prescription grade anti-inflammatories. And finally, when they wanted to add a third anti-inflammatory because my arthritis symptoms were getting worse and worse, he said, when are you going to listen to me? And I finally did. Yes. No, because you point this out, Pete, and people go, oh, okay, well, no, and I'm living proof of it. So rather than going with okay, let's add another, right, anti-inflammatory, blah, 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 I did what you suggested. And within a month, I was off all anti-inflammatories. My hypertension issues were coming down. I mean, my energy, my focus, much to the chagrin of the deep state, by the way, improved.
Energy is a big deal because most people don't know what it's like to have normal amounts of energy. And this is an interesting thing to talk about because the number one reason in the United States that people visit their doctor, the number one reason, it's not cancer.
Nope.
It's not heart disease. Nope. It's, doc, I don't have enough energy.
I'm exhausted.
Right? And it's because, the first thing to consider, there's a saying, I love this, in diagnostic science. When you see signs and symptoms of an illness, you think about, when you hear hoofbeats, you think about horses before you think about zebras. So when you see somebody with symptoms, you think about the most common things that cause it before you think about weird things that cause it. So lack of energy, first, second, and third things to consider, not enough nutrients, period. You don't have a bad gene. You don't have adrenal fatigue. You don't have anemia, right? These are not first considerations. First consideration is you're sapped. Your body's run out of the stuff it needs to fix itself, maintain its structure and function. And this is the only reason, is God is my witness, that my profession is alive today in face of this gargantuan medical monopoly, because we get results. It's the only reason.
So when I talked to my doc said, well, Dave, you're under a lot of stress. You need to reduce your stress. Excuse me. How exact? I'm living life, for goodness sakes. What are you going to tell me? What? Excuse me. Right? Okay, that sounds great. Reduce stress. It ain't going to happen. Right? And this is why, Pete, and people might, look, I did for a while too, Pete. I just said, okay, well, nutrients, minerals, if it was that, well, it's Pete, this sounds terrible, but I would think, if it was this important, why did I not get more than a minute of this in my training in MD medical school in Northwestern University Medical School, right?
Now we're talking about the root. You're right, exactly right. Exactly right. And that's a normal thought.
Yeah.
I mean, people look around. The only medicine that's practiced in their hospital, the only medicine their insurance paid for, the only medicine that they do research on at their university is MD-directed allopathic pharmaceutical centers medicine. Therefore, it's a logical conclusion that, well, that's the best medicine in the world.
Yeah.
And all these other people are just back of the bus quacks, because if they weren't, they'd be up there too. But that's incorrect, because people are missing the data point of the monopolization that happened in 1918. You know, I just got off the phone 2 days ago. A woman called in. I'm treating her son, who was in a horrible car accident. They're up in Canada, and this kid was the textbook PTSD. I mean, PTSD on steroids. He'd had every conventional treatment known to man. Nothing was working. Psychotherapy wasn't really helping. He was just kind of, you know, keeping his head just a little bit above water, right? And in 4 weeks of my treatment, he's 75% better.
Wow.
And I tell you,
and your treatment focused on nutritional support.
Yes.
Right.
I mean, you give the body what it needs.
Right.
Give it a little stimulus.
Yeah.
Get the hell out of the way and see how far back the body bounces. Your body's ability to fix itself is so much greater than Big Pharma would like you to believe. No kidding.
And Pete, we've addressed this before, but it bears repeating. It's also what you eat. And this is why the video that you've done, the 12 bad foods, it's free, operationfreedomhealth.com at the top of the homepage right there, 12 bad foods, the video's free. What we put in our bodies, food-wise, can actually, we think, might be helping us. In fact, might be hurting us.
Well, it is hurting you.
Right? And the other point that you've also made in the past, in a very articulate fashion, is that just because we're eating a bunch of organic stuff, the soil is depleted of the nutrients and minerals it might have had many decades ago, to the point where you can eat a bushel basket of the best organic stuff, and you're still not getting the right nutritional quota that you need to maintain health and wellness.
I mean, and this is why it's called holistic medicine.
Yeah, that's right.
Because we take all of these considerations into consideration. Yeah. Right? I have one of the things that just really made my head explode. My first year out of naturopathic medical school, I'm practicing in Massachusetts on Cape Cod in this little facility. There's probably 8 different doctors, different disciplines there. And there's a medical doctor who had a practice a couple doors down from me. She was a conventional medical doctor, and she advertised to the world that she was holistic.
Okay.
And in her mind, what holistic meant was that she would talk to her patients for 20 minutes before she prescribed them a drug. Because she needed to understand more about them.
Well, okay, that's all well and fine, but that doesn't make it
understand what their stresses in their life were. Yeah, okay. It wasn't just a slapdash 6-minute visit with the doctor. She spent 20 minutes with the patient before she prescribed them a drug. And from her way of thinking, that was holistic. And, you know, my head exploded, and I wanted to set things on fire, for goodness sakes.
Yeah.
It's crazy. That's not what holistic means. Holistic means you attend to all of the systems of the body as comprehensively as you can, because everything is connected.
Right.
And that's why we get results with this method, because it's not just vitamin D, it's not just vitamin C, it's not just a lot of omega-3, it's all 90.
Right.
In absorbable formulations. And then we get into botanical medicines, plant extracts, the good herbs formulations. We don't try to outguess and outsmart Mother Nature by extracting these constituents from the plant and getting rid of these, which is what the majority of botanical medicine manufacturers do. We use it all. We don't mess with Mother Nature. We concentrate 100% of it. And it's manufactured in a way that optimizes the extraction process. And you put all of these things together, that's why it's a game changer. And that's why we get results. And that's why people love it, because people, they just don't know what they're missing, man.
And that's why we have OperationFreedomHealth.com. It's a site for the videos we've done. It's a site for the printed information that we've discussed. It's a site for the products. Many people say, well, why do you have products on? Well, why talk about things and tell people, well, this is what you need to have, and then not have it available for them? Now, and so the products are available, the foundation pack that we discussed, the other supplements that we discussed. Full disclosure, purchase of the products does support Operation Freedom and what we do on this platform. Now, Pete, let's talk. So we have OperationFreedomHealth.com. If folks want to follow with you specifically, where do they go?
drglidden.com. That's easy breezy, lemon squeezy. drglidden.com. Tons of information there, more in depth. Take a deep dive into the unrecognized country of science-based, clinically verified holistic medicine. I look forward to it. On my website, by the way, I have a subscription service. If you're a subscriber, I have 2 hours of live chat with myself every week. Every week. We have a chat room that's open. It's a video feed. I take questions. We had one last night. There were 32 people on it. We had people from Hawaii, people from Australia, people from the United Kingdom, people from all over the U.S. It's a really great family of like-minded individuals, which is important to align yourself with, especially in these days.
That's right.
Because most people have become cult members. It's of the branch Covidians, right?
Yeah,
they have no idea what they're talking about, but they're absolutely positive that they're correct. And there are lots of people like us in the world, and we come together twice a week at my website, and that's worth the price of admission.
And educate our listeners on your books again.
Well, every time I hear somebody say it, I have to laugh, because I really like the title of my first book, with "Everybody is sick, and I know why."
Yeah. It's true.
It's not because you have a bad gene. You don't have high blood pressure or arthritis because you have a bad gene. It's because you have a bad doctor, for goodness sakes. A doctor that just doesn't know any better. And look, thank God for surgery when it's necessary. Mm-hmm. Thank God for the sterile technique and general anesthesia and insulin, right? Mm-hmm. That we need. There's room in the world for everything, man, and we need equal access to all of it. We're not even close to that, not even close by a long shot. In my second book, Attempt to Cure with Holistic Medicine, walks people through 90 different illnesses. I tell people what the MDs think about it, what we think about it, and give health recovery strategies. It's like a self-help health recovery primer. I'm pretty proud of it. So check them out.
And they're the cornerstone of our foundation, of our library, medical library. I thank you, Pete, for everything you have done, are doing, and will do. Dr. Glidden, GLIDDEN.com, OperationFreedomHealth.com, and of course, our website, DaveJanda.com, all available for you to empower you. The more people are educated with truth, facts, data, the more empowered people become. And the more empowered people become, the sooner we end this reign of terror and fear by whatever you want to call it. The globalist syndicate, the New World Order crowd, the deep state, whatever you want to call it. It comes to an end much quicker by being educated and empowered. And I'd like to thank you, Pete, for everything you have done, are doing, and will do. I'd like to thank you folks for joining us today. Until next time, Dave Janda signing off. Dream big and dare to fail. Thanks for your time today.